Asian Zion and Hampshire Teletophe Sambo. Right, so we didn't finish off the completion of the Maim of Pasha Noya. Alpia now Yuvan Mashakosu Eila Tilda Soya. Immediately Rashi brought B'Shem HaMedrash. The Ika told the Seihem Shal Tzadikim Hein Mitzvahs of Ma'asim Tovim. That the principal tail dates of Tzadikim are the mitzvahs and the good deeds, literally, that they do. And therefore it's written, Eila told us Noach ish Tzadik hoya B'dei Reisa. Or from that it's mashma that the main tail is the main how do you call it, generations that came out of Noach were his the fact that he's a tzaddik. What is a tzaddik? It's somebody that he does mitzvahs and ma'asim, that his zikr activity is mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim. So from that it's mashma that the principal tellers of tzaddikim are their mitzvahs and their ma'asim tovim. So the Rebbe said, and we're going to see why he says this, but he says, of our kavanah, when we say mitzvahs and ma'asim tovim, then we mean Hu al asiyas hamitzvahs b'peil mamish b'kabbalah zel malchus shamayim. We saw the whole latter part of the Maimah that there's a way of being mekayim the mitzvahs b'peil mamish, with the taking on oneself of the yoke of heaven. In other words, the kabbalah's oil in the form of bittul mamish to rotzen Hashem bilvad, and that's the ikar of his whole motivation in keeping the mitzvahs. Shezeh ikar hatoyoluis v'hagilui. That's called the principal toyoluis, the principal, what you might call offspring, and the gilui of tzaddikim. Why do we say that that's a principal offspring? And offspring implies something that comes from Helam to gilui. He said, Dehine yesh toyoluis v'gilui gam b'pchinas kavanas hamitzvahs. We saw there's another way or another level and oifen in kiyum hamitzvahs, but that's the union of kavanas hamitzvah. That's the spiritual attention on the part of the keeper of the mitzvah to the inyanim of the mitzvah is in the olam haselyonim and in the spheres of Elyonim. But not so much his emphasis on the actual kiyum of the rotzen of the eibishter b'poya. So therefore that's also called toil days and also gilui. Why? He said, I'm sorry, that gam b'pchinas kavanas hamitzvahs and the ava the b'chol levavcha. Because we pointed out that the two avas at the beginning of the pasuk, the ava b'chol levavcha and b'chol nafshecha, then they are concerned with the kavanas hamitzvahs, and they deal with the ruchnius inyanim involved in the kiyum of the mitzvah mitzad the ruchnius and b'meir, the ruchni which is meir to the other, the inyanim that he gains the ruchnius from keeping the mitzvah. But that doesn't bring into gilui the etzem ha'oyer of the Ein Sof, meaning the gilui of the atzmas, ki'im b'asiyas hamitzvahs b'kabbalah zel malchus shamayim, u'b'hakdomas b'chol miyetocha. Only when he keeps the mitzvahs purely mitzad the bittul to the rotzen of the eibishter, absolutely given away only to keeping the rotzen of atzmusay, and that's through the proceeding in his avodah of the ava b'chol miyedecha. What we saw, that's mitzad the etzem hanefesh. What the etzem hanefesh is nimshak to atzmus ein sof. That's how the atzmi of the nefesh elikis is nimshak to the atzmias of the eibishter. And that's called b'chol miyedecha, where that's an ava b'li gvul, and that's the union of oisim ratzoi noi shel mocham, that then he's devoted only to the union from ratzein, and that brings down an aveda that causes by him an aveda which is not limited by the koiches hanefesh, or it's beyond the koiches of the nefesh, and that brings down the union alidei said nimsha b'chinas ha'atzmas the Ein Sof. And that comes down, as we see in a second, into the Gilui Lamata Mata. It comes all the way through Ishtalshalas Ha'ilamas into the Gilui B'zeh Ha'ilam B'pashtas and B'golui Lamata Mata. Masha Inken, as we pointed out, the Aveda from the Kavanas HaMitzvahs is Nimshel B'ikeh B'Ha'ilam Asel Yoinim. And if there's a Gilui Lamata, that's only a Ha'ora Bilvad from the Ika Gilui, which is Lamaila. That's the difference between the two in Yonim, in the Kiyum HaMitzvahs. Therefore, when he says that the Ika Toilers and the Tzadikim, then he said that since he uses the word Ika, the principal Gilui, the principal Toilers, meaning the idea of offspring, the principal Gilui of the Avedas HaTzadikim in Kiyum HaMitzvahs, and that's Davke, the Aveda B'chinas Kabbalah Zeh, Malchus Shamayim, Al Yidei the Ava B'chol Mi'edecha. Davke, that brings the Oyer HaAtzmi all the way Lamata B'teich Olam Hazeh. And Mamela, let's now move on the other dictum that the Rebbe made at the beginning of the Maimon, where he said the very fact that he uses the expression Ika Toil Deiseyim Shal Tzadikim, mitzvahs of Maisim Teivim, then it's mashma that there's another type of Toilers also, which are not the Ika, but they're also Toilers. The fact that he uses the word Ika Toilers that indicates that there's another Toilers. And so what is he coming to literally negate, or what is he emphasizing by saying that these are the Ika Toilers? So now that we've drawn the difference between these two different types of Hamshochers, then we can say that that's the Pshat Ika HaToilers. Ika Toilers say him is Davke the Veda B'Kabbalah Zeh, the Veda in the Mitzvahs B'Kabbalah Zeh Malchus Shamayim, Al Yidei the Ava B'chol Mi'edecha, because that brings the Gilui Mamish Lamata Mata B'teich Zeh Ha'olam. There's another inyan in Mitzvahs itself, which also is a Toilers, but it's not the Ika Toilers. And that's the Ava, that's the Ava V'chol V'chol Nafshecha, and Mamela, that's the Kiyum of the Mitzvahs B'Kavona to the Inyanim Hadayah in the Elam Asanyeh. He said, Gam Ze Ika HaToilers V'Hagilui Lamata. With that, he's answering that kasha that he began with. Da Gilui Dalidei Kavonas HaMitzvahs Halo Ika HaGilui Hulamayla. As we already pointed out in the Maimon, that the principal Gilui from the Aveda Kavanas HaMitzvahs, since the Devekis of the Odom is in the Spheres V'Elyenas and in the Inyan Hadayah and the Elamus, the Harufnim, the Elamus Elokim Hadayah L'Maila, and therefore the Ika Gilui, that's the Inyan of Toildes, is also L'Maila. Olamata Meirach HaOra Levad. You can't say that nothing is Meir Lamata. What he keeps the mitzvah, then for sure there's some Hamshocha, but it's only a Ha'ora from the Ika Gilui, which is Lamaila. Avol Asiyas HaMitzvahs Atzmo. Because of the Asiyas HaMitzvahs Atzmo, meaning the etzem keeping of the mitzvah purely, not because of any motivation that he's looking for in Ruchnistik Inyanim, but the etzem kiyum, pashtas, like we brought down the Manga Oma from the Gemara, that the Ika is a fila b'li kavana, without the inyan of kavana, etzem kiyum mitzvahs atzmo b'kabbalas oil malchus shamayim, ali dezeh nimshuk b'chinas ha'atzmas ta'ein seif, v'nimshuk lamata mamish, and it comes down mamish into this world. Kamosha, who without any alteration, without any ha'ora bilvad, of the Ika Gilui of the Ein Seif is mamish lamata in this world. And so that's the tiktuk of the Medrash. Ika till they say shal tzadikim mitzvahs of maisim toivim. Because there is another form of tildes which is also mitzvah of maisim toivim, but it's not Ika Ika till they say. Ika till they say is davke mitzvahs of maisim toivim. B'poel mamish, b'kabbalah zel malchus shamayim davke ali deiseh, he brings the atzmas of the Eibishter Lamata b'gilui b'teich ha'olam, and that's toildes mamish. Anim shelamata mamish k'moishu hu v'zeu eile toildes noyach. ish tzaddik, kulu. In other words, he said that these are the teulas of Noach. Noach, meaning that the ikar teulas of Noach is Noach himself, as it were. What is Noach? He's a ish tzaddik. In other words, that's referring to the union of kiyum mitzvahs. The ikar ha-teulas v'agilui hein ma'aser ha-mitzvahs. Aber how? Poel mamish shezeu inyan oisim retzeinei shel mokim. That is the union that we saw of oisim, meaning causing a gilui, the word asiya indicating a gilui, but poel mamish, oisim retzeinoi, the rotzen, and the rotzen pnimi, because we saw the different madregas in rotzen, the rotzen pnimi ve'atzmi of the Metzava himself, the Eivish to Be'atzmusay, well, that comes down begolui davki alidei, that oifen of bittul to that rotzen, bittul to the rotzen bedelop couple. So that brings down the gilui of pnimis ve'atzmius harotzen, which is pnimis ve'atzmius of Ein Seif, into mokoim, into the oilemas, and particularly into oilemas ha'tachtein. Well, that's in a mokim kipshute. So therefore we see that the Rebbe's answered the diktuk that he made at the beginning of the Maimah, that the fact that we say ikar teulah, say, implies that there are two different, there's a principal teulah, but there's also another type of teulah. In other words, two ifanim in the kiyum mitzvahs, or the mitzvahs how they are, mitzvah ruchnius einyonim beikar, or how they are, poel mamish, bekabal seo, mitzvahs eines trichas kavana, the bittul to the etzem rots. That's called teulas, tzaddik teulas shel tzaddikim, because that brings gilui into the oilam pashtas, which is called mokim. Okay, so that's the siyum pasha Noach. But as I said, it would be very worthwhile that everybody go back and do systematic chazorah and not just sit around using the time for other inyonim. Because later on in life you look back and you say, oh, I was in the yeshiva and I could have been the dactik in Samapur. I had an opportunity and I didn't. I used my time for other inyonim. Bamila, you must take the opportunity as you have it now, particularly when Mashiach comes, all these inyonim will be begolui, and you won't have the opportunity to break your head so much, which has got in itself a mila, as we'll soon see as we go along here, the mila of Yigiyah Mamish in Torah. Alright, so now we move to B'siyata Dishmaya Shabbos Pasha Lech Lecho Reish Namapor. In other words, we move now into the next Parsha, Pasha Lech Lecho. Vayem Hashem el Avrom, Lech Lecho mi'artzecho, mi'malatecho, mi'bisabicho, it's written over there that you should go out. Hashem said to Avram, you must go out of your land and out of your birthplace and out of your father's house. Ve'eschol agoy godel, and I will make you into a great nation, or a great people. Ve'avorcho, and I will bless you. Ve'agad lo shmecha, and I will make your name great. Literally, I will, you might say, I will enhance your name. Tzodik lahovin, says the Rebbe, we need to understand the derech, that traveling in the way, is a very tiring tircha for a mensch. As this one on traveling around, matters a mensch out. That's if he only travels just once here or there. But if he travels around a lot, then that has an effect on a person. It can weary him and cause literally a lacking and a withdrawal, or what you might call a symptom in certain inyonim, which are part of the what you might call principal inyonim in the life of a mensch. And particularly we see that Avraham Avinu, he traveled around. Holoich v'noseiah, he went all over the place, and he went down to Mitzrayim, and he came back again. He traveled hither and thither. So there was the Rebbe, it's Yadua, that when you travel around, then that's mamayet. It literally, how do you call it, lessons or it cancels away from, it causes lacking. Memayet from the word miut. Memayet is Hashem. It causes your name literally to become less. Omahu imrim shalidei lech lecho alidei zeh agadlo shmecha. That truly going out into the way. I'm telling you, lech lecho, and you're going on a journey. Albeit you're going to Israel and you're going to a very holy place, but you've got to go into a journey. And one of the things of a journey is that it causes a lacking in the name of a person. Now we're going to have to see what really does that mean. What does it mean to cause a lacking in the name? So Rashi brings over there that traveling in the journey causes three things to be lacking. As you no doubt remember, you may be familiar with. Rashi brings over there that it means less children. One has less ability to be kind of mitzvah from the period of Olivia when one's traveling around. And it's mamayit momein, it's mamayit one's ability to earn a proper income if you're traveling around. So it causes you to be lacking in your momein. And even if you have some momein, then it causes you to use it up because you're traveling around and you don't have any backing and further input to your income. And then the third thing is that it's mamayit is Hashem. It causes the name literally to be mishmayet. That's what Rashi brings up there. Hine Rashi, but if we look carefully in Rashi, Rashi's got a certain purpose for why he brings that. And we have to pay careful attention now to what is the Rebbe's dictum. So he said, Hine Rashi pirush shezo masha birchoi. That what the Eibishter promised or blessed with a bracha. He said, V'agadlo shmecha, I will greaten your name. I'm promising you, I'm blessing you that you're going to have a great name. V'agdolas Hashem. So Rashi said to Liyesha derech mamayit gimel dvarim, l'zois beirachoi. Therefore he benched him, v'yescho, and I will make you into a great nation. In other words, Rashi says that, like we just pointed out, that the derech is mamayit three things. And one of them is Pirei V'Riva, one is Momen, and the other is name. So therefore, since the Eibishter knew that he was telling Avram to go into a journey, so therefore the Eibishter knew that was going to have a negative effect. It would cause a miut in these three inyanim. That's the derech ha'olam. If you go journeying, then it lessens and cancels from these three aspects. And therefore, by way of warning that, by way of balancing that out, that Avraham Avinu shouldn't lose or fall into a miut in these gimel dvarim ikriyim, but they're very important in what the Eibishter wants of Avraham Avinu. And therefore he blessed him with a special blessing that these things wouldn't damage him in that way. He would be literally covered by a special blessing. He would have a special, what you might call, account to fall back on, but that was the Eibishter's bracha. So it comes out, the way Rashi learns it is, that the Eibishter told Avraham Avinu to go into a way that automatically causes a bittul and a miut in these three inyanim. Therefore the Eibishter blessed him that it wouldn't damage you. These things, don't worry, I will make sure that you'll be installed, or how do you call it, refurbished in these inyanim, despite the fact that the derech is going to cause a miut. That's what Rashi says. So it says the Rebbe, Omnom, Mashmois HaPosiku, Shalidei Lech Lecho, Yeh Mamela Hagdoros Hashem. V'tzorik Lahovin Eichu. So Rashi said, the Rebbe said, what Rashi says is to a certain extent an interpretation already. It's learning that in Emerson, the Eibishter knew that these things are going to be lessened, but he's backing him up and promising that he'll make up the what you might call the lacking. However, we read the pasuk carefully, and you look at the pasuk, Vayem Hashem el Avram lech lecho me'atzcha, ve'escho l'goy gotel v'aloch v'agad lo shmecha, imashma, that through the very fact that you will go, then b'derech mamela I'll give you all these inyanim. It doesn't really look in the posik that David's saying, listen here, I'm sorry I'm wrong here. I'm telling you to go out and do these things. I know it's going to cause you a big lacking, but don't worry, I'll bless you and I'll help you out. You know, I'll see that you get refilled in these inyan. It won't damage you. On the contrary, it'll bring you an even better inyan in these things. Oh, but that will be because there will be a lacking in these inyan. However, we just read the posik stam. That's written by Hashem Avram Lech Lechom Avesh Chol Goy Godel. It's mashma that those are all positive things that will come directly out of his going. Well, it's mashma that in this particular case, the derech is not of any importance to these inyanim. It's not going to damage them, nor right from the very moment that Avram will be Makayim, the Lech Lechoy, will start going, you automatically have all these big brothers that Davis is going to give him. What that tends to imply, that the very fact that you'll get out and you'll move out in this inyan of Lech Lecho, then the Davis will give you these inyanim. And not the way Rashi learns it, no, there will be a Yerida, but the bracha will make it up and even add or improve on the situation. But that's to the Rebbe. When you just read the posik, you don't see there's a Yerida and then as it were an Aliyah. It's just mashma. These inyanim will automatically be given to you by the Eibishter as a result. Just that'll follow. But the Mamahila, albeit it's a divine thing, albeit it's the Eibishter doing, but that Gufa will follow Mamahila from your going. So that's a very fascinating deal. When you read the Posik Testam and you think about it, that's the way it looks. You go and you're going to get all these inyanim. So Rashi said, no, you go, you're going to have a lacking, but don't worry, I'll make it back, even with a Tesefet. And where does that appear in the Posik? And the simple view of the Posik is that Alidei, what you'll go, all these things will be given you, even not as a reward, but they will be a divine blessing from the actual going. That going itself will bring the divine blessing. But so that was the Rebbe. We have to understand, Taki, what's it that's for a diuk, what are the two nuances? The nuance of Rashi and the pashtus of the Pasuk. Vehine, he said, Zesha derech mamayit ashay. Oh, that took what that would follow. How we learn the Pasik, it would follow that the Pasik is Melachatchila in L'mayla mi'ateva, L'mayla mi what you might call Hagbolas. It just says Lech Lecho, and you have all these inyanim, and you won't have to worry about dirt. Forget about the dirt. The very fact that you'll be Makayim my tzivui to go, automatically you'll earn all these inyanim from me, which means that right from the very beginning, Avram's Yatzia is meant to be a Dova L'mayla mi'gidu ateva. Over Lefi Rashi, there's an inshal L'mayla mi'ateva, but only after the Teva will take its toll. There'll be a certain toll taken by the Teva, but the Eivishter will make it up, or at least Al Chapanim we've got to worry about that and hope that the Eivishter will overcome those inyanim. But the simple mashma of the pasuk is it's Melachatchila Ariba, Melachatchila L'mayla mi'ateva. V'hinei said the Rebbe Zeh Shaderech Mamayit Hashem. What on earth does that mean? What is the simple tide? If we say that normally speaking, derech would be Mamayit name, it would cancel out your name. So Rashi brings over there, you're all familiar with, after having learned Yochitas, you're familiar with what Rashi brings over there, or at least it's not in the normal Rashi, but it's like in a Hagua, and it's brought B'Shem Rashi Yoshe, an old Rashi, which means in an old print. Well, in the early printings, the early manuscripts or prints that they find of Rashi, sometimes there are shinuim to the Chumashim, how we have them in later generations. There were certain pieces that they found in very early prints that they don't find in the later ones. So there's some Chumashim that they write in these what they found in a very old script of a print of Rashi, another, as it were, girsa, or another, even sometimes another pshat. So over there, Rashi brings that the inyan from Miyut Hashem is not so much that Avraham Avinu will lose something in his name from going, but, and that's a little bit more Lefi our pshat, and therefore it's not Lefi the first pshat of Rashi, that it's clear the Eibishter is promising him that you will get a bigger name. And that's what we see that later on, you know, it's as well, the Eibishter turned his name from Avrom into Avraham. Avraham, he got an extra letter in his name. So therefore Rashi brings, at least they bring in Rashi, Vishem Defus Yoshein, an old print there from Rashi, that the Eibishter, what did he mean by a Gadlo Shmercha, that I will add a letter into your name. Your name will become great in the sense that up to now it's only been Avram. Now it's going to become Avraham. Yeah, Avraham, but that's a tremendous milah, that's nitaisev, decay in his name. Yeah, with the whole beer and the whole riches benekel there, which comes out later in the Chumash itself. Amamele, it follows that that's a little bit more like our pshat, that Kilo Malachatchila, Hashem is promising him that if you carry out this tzivui of Lech Lecho, you're going to immediately well, not immediately, but behemshech, you will reach, as a madrega, that you'll have an addition to your name. Yagad L'Shmercha. Oh, but that's already another pshat. That's not the pshat that appears in the simple pshat in Rashi as we brought it down here. So therefore, according to the first pshat, or what you might call the main pshat in Rashi, which we're bringing, what does it mean that you might lose your name? What does that mean? That the Eibush has to promise you that you'll make that up. He'll make up for you the loss of name. What would that mean? So therefore, said the Rebbe, we find a very interesting pshat. Pirush b'matnas kahuna. Now the matnas kahuna is the famous early mafirish on the Medrash Rabbah. That's one under many mafoshim on the Medrash Rabbah, but the first one, the early period commentator that he wrote, the first pirush on the Medrash Rabbah, is called the matnas kahuna. That's what he called his pirush. And he brings down there B'Shem Rashi. Now, the interesting thing is that that's not Rashi in the Chumash. Sometimes the Matnes Kahuna quotes Rashi. What it appears that there was even a pirush of Rashi on the Medrash Rabbah. In other words, that Rashi, in his unbelievable, Ein Seif output, even you know that for Parnassus, Rashi was a businessman. You know that. He had a big vineyard. He had a big wine plantation. He used to make wine, sell it to the guy. I'm sure he had a kosher plantation that he kept for hidden. But Al Chopanim is Rashi was he was wasn't it? Wasn't it? Because if I wanted to make competition, I reckon that if I laid down to sleep and you laid down to sleep the way you are now, I would go to sleep quicker than you. Which means that we've got to make an effort, so we can't just slop around. We didn't come into this world, just to slop around. We came to be levadik. Every now and then you have to slop. There's a famous sikh from the Rebbe. It's like going back in order to go forward. Even when you're going back, you're hopping from koyches to go forward, higher, etc., etc. How much the Rebbe kept that himself, we don't know. But anyway, for the sake of the world, the Rebbe gave a whole beer in the Maila or the benefits of shluffing. But there's a limit to everything, as they say, and there's times for shluffing, and there's times for learning Shamavot. So the Rebbe said that the Matnas Kahuna brings in the name of Rashi. So the fear is that Noisef, of all his unbelievable output, Rashi did actually write a pirush on the Medrash Rabbah. And it seems that he even wrote a pirush on Pirkei Avos. What did he not write on? Rashi, it's just unbelievable. And therefore there's some prints of the Medrash Rabbah where they bring a pirush, a miyuchas l'Rashi. They actually bring it. Somehow or other they must have got hold of some sort of old prints or manuscript or something, and they actually bring a pirush on the Medrash Rabbah, Miyuchas L'Rashi. Some old prints of the Medrash Rabbah don't have it. The Matnas Kahuna, he quite often quotes, he says, Pirush Rashi, kach v'kach. Now he's a Pirush on the Medrash Rabbah, so when he says Pirush Rashi, he's not talking about Pirush Rashi in the Chumash, because if he were, he would say Pirush Rashi b'nimuke ha-Chumash. That's the way they usually write it. Nimuke means like the times and the biurim on the Chumash. Then he would say that Pirush Rashi b'nimuke ha-Chumash. But since he doesn't say he's Pirush Rashi, then he means that I'm doing with the Medrash Rabbah, and Rashi did also. I'm quoting you what Rashi says on the Medrash Rabbah. And then what's interesting is that, as a matter of fact, in the Shir Kloid I gave the other night, I saw that everybody was, the heads were beginning to droop and so on. And if I didn't bring, there's a Pirush Rashi on the Medrash over there. I was talking about the whole Indian from Tzava, Loshen Rabbi, Loshen Yohi, in the Gemara, Rashi says one thing. Well, there's a Medrash Rabbah, there's a Pirush Rashi on the Medrash Rabbah, where Rashi says slightly differently. And the Matnas Kahuna, Chaptimut, the Matnas Kahuna brings it down, and then he brings it, like I said, that the Rabbeinu Eliyahu Mizrahi says kach v'kach. He said that can't possibly be for the reason we said that all the Chumashim don't have it that way, all the Sifrei Torah, don't have it that way. And then he said, how is you medatik in what Rashi says here in the Medrash Rabbah, that maybe it can be miyashiv the Rabbeinu does and it does. And he said, "V'somachti." I'm very happy. I found this Loshen Rashi that helps us out and helps us to be miyashiv certain difficulties, etc., etc. But that's and I have another print of the Medrash Rabbah, a more up-to-date print, and they bring in many places this Pirush of Rashi on the Medrash Rabbah. But some people say that it's not 100% that it's Rashi. But the Matnas Kahuna, he was very early, very very early, Achra, or maybe he was even corrupt to this man Rishonim, and he quotes it as Pirush Rashi. So it's, I don't know if you guys are interested in such things, but it's very fascinating. So anyway, what does he say B'Shem Rashi? What does he say to Matnas Kahuna? He says a very interesting thing. Why is it that the derech is mamayit Shem, the derech causes a miut in your name? So he says, Mifnei she'i efshar l'kayim shivuyei Hashem yisborah b'derech, kimoi biyoyse b'menucha b'peisoi. I looked it up. Is that the Matnas Kahuna? He says that when you're traveling, you can't keep the mitzvahs of the Eibishter with all the hidurim, with all the, the what you might call the properness, with all the perfection that you can keep when you've been menucha b'vei. And I mean, you see it's like that. All of a sudden, so you come down someplace and you want to daven, and you want to put on tefillin, you got to find a hole someplace, a corner or somewhere. You're not mavuvu, you're not this, you're not something else. You want to be medactic and not have some mitzvah. It's a difficult. The people who must have traveled during Hanukkah, it's a whole big kofeti. They're going to light Hanukkah lights on the plane, and not the whole thing. You're going to be able to sit in a sukkah and not about that. That's a kofeti. He said, over the Matnas Kahuna, he's got a point. He says that you can't really keep the mitzvahs with all with all the splendor, with all the chayis and the properness that you do when you're at home. Sure. But tzarich lahavin ma shaychus inin ha-mitzvahs l'inin Hashem. So we need to understand what's got to do. That's the way the Matnas Kahuna learns Pshat, that it's Mamayet Es Hashem. It literally cancels or lessens your name when you're traveling in the way. And he learns you can't keep your mitzvahs as good as what you do when you're at home. So he said we need to understand what is good for Shaykhs, one to the other. He said, Hein le'inyon miyut Hashem. Yeah, we need to understand why is that considered a lacking over your name. And then we need to understand that it's mashma from that if you can keep the mitzvahs properly, then you get a bigger name. Then your name is bigger, it's better. If you can keep all the mitzvahs with the tachlis hashleimas, then Hagdolas Hashem. So we need to understand, what's the connection. And it's amazing the pincer of the Rabbeinu, that they just sort of come down and in that matnas kahuna is a sort of an amazing difficulty there to understand what is he really hinting at. Well, they said that I was going to bring out a whole Indian in Pnimis HaTorah V'Ka'ich. Sure. So that's the kasha that we have in the Parsha Lech Lecha. And we see that the Ikar of the Rebbe's spotlight centered on was this Indian of Shem. Mamayatas Hashem, or Agadlas Hashem L'Chatchila, according to our interpretation of it. Now, what's the Indian for Kima Mitzvah got to do with your name? You have either a bigger name or you have a less name. In order to understand that, Chorik Lahakti Mashan is Buliyim, the Indian Oisim Retain Eishal Moki. Well, we see that for several Maimonim now we've been aiming to get to the Pirush of that expression. Oisim Retain Eishal Moki. It's really a very central point here in the whole Hemshech. What is hidden in those few amazingly cryptic words about being Mamshich Elakus, Oisim Retain Eishal Moki. But it's the Gemara Masechta Brachos, as we pointed out. He said, Hainu, Hamshoches, Bechinas. What did we say with that? It was Hamshoches, Bechinas, Harotzen, Pnimi, V'atzmi, the Ein Seif. That we bring down the Pnimis, the Gerotzen, and the Etzem Harotzen of the Eibishter, how he's Mamish, Ein Seif, how he's completely beyond the whole Indian of Oilamas and Shtaushel Oilamas. L'mayla L'gamri Me'akav. Shali Deizeh, Nimshach HaGilui Lamata, what that was in here of Toil days, heavens of Toil days. Ve'amshocha hi alidei kiyum ha'mitzvahs b'poel mamish, v'kabbalah zel malchus shamayim, ve'alidei, but there had to first of all be a preceding Aveda of Ava b'chol miyei dercha, and the Rebbe teaches what is Ava b'chol miyei dercha, as we already saw near the end of the previous Maimah. V'nizboyem de'inyam b'chol miyei dercha hu she'eino al pi tam vodas, because the other two, b'chol avavcha and even b'chol nafshecha, which is a higher inyan, they're still limited somewhat by the isboninus which gives rise to them. So therefore they're not the inyan of blivu, and therefore they're not called miyei. And therefore they can be described as al pi tam vodas, even though the Ava b'chol nafshecha has got to do with Masiras Nefesh and with other inyanim, but it comes from a hisbonenus which is still moving in high forms of seichel and understanding. Ki'im, what is the Aveda b'chol miyei Ki'im mitzat etzem nafshei. The whole miyei is different. It's mitzat the etzem of the nefesh, completely mufshat from tam v'das. Shenim shecha b'etzem li'atzmes ein seif baruch hu. Well, that was the Lashon. It's a quote from the Lashon that we had over there. Ki'im mitzat etzem nafshei shenim shecha b'etzem li'atzmes ein seif baruch hu. That was managed the Lashon of the Maimah. What you've got to do, as I said, you've got to get down and get cracking and work on the Chazorah, so that you'll be able to pick up these little nuances, and you'll be able to see that there's certain Lashonos which are repeated from time to time, because they're the Ika Achiza in Lashon for this beer. That's the way it comes out in the best possible way. And so therefore we see that when you have Ava b'chol miyei dercha, even though it's miyei dercha, it's your blivu, it's your miyei. That's a famous dircha the Rebbe in Derech Mitzvah Shuras Mitzvah Tefillah beneged to the union of the Ava b'chol miyei dercha, that it is your blivu, but it is mitzad the blivu of your nefesh. In other words, it's your inyan, and it has in itself your special individuality. And therefore, Lagabi, a great tzaddik, it might be that your miyoid is already a limitation by him. But since it's your bligvul and you've come to a inyan beyond your limitations, then that's considered the etzem of your nefesh, and that's considered bligvul amiti, and therefore it links up to the Eibishter how he's bligvul ma. So that's a big chiddush, and that shows us that each and every one of us is going to reach his own bligvul and not be concerned with what somebody else has reached, even though it could be that his bligvul legabi an emissar or even Hashem, b'mesilas nefesh, Yahweh b'chol miyoid shaloi, it could be that it's only a limitation legabi him. Like we see in Perek Yud Gimel, the Alter Rebbe brings it legabi the avodah of the beinoni, legabi atzadik is b'klal nishbe'erach. And yet on the other hand, he immediately goes back and he said, on the other hand, that's emes and that's emes. It just depends how you look at it. Yeah, that's the emes of the beinoni, and that's the emes of the tzaddik. Of sof. Yeah, if we look at it mitzad emes, I mean that's emes and that's emes. Aber b'vadai she'ein erech bein zeh, yeah, bein zeh zeh. Now remember the same thing. The miyoid of one person, like the miyoid of another person, is maybe eino aroi klal. Aber sof, since it's his ein aroi, and it's his bligvul, therefore it is nimshak to the inyan of the amitis bligvul of the Eibishter. In other words, all we're demanding of you is that you get out of your medidas v'hagabolas according to your capacity. And it could be that if you do so, then that's emissar bligvul as far as the Eibishter is concerned, and therefore that allows you and brings you to a kesher in the Eibishter how he is bligvul amiti. That's a fascinating diuk, Badora. But that's not really the diuk we're directly concerned with here, but just derech hagav, it happens to be the case, and that leads extra understanding and time into the whole inyan here. However, dafchu through that kabbalah so malchus shemayim b'pshita, and a mitzvah sein and tzrichos kavona, and as that's motivated by the Yahweh b'chol me'itecha. Well, that's the pshat of Esim Ritzei Neishel Mokim. That's how we learned the pshat Esim Ritzei Neishel Mokim. And that has the Tuyul list that brings that Ein Seif Mamish B'golui into Elam Atachtein in a form of Tuyul list for Gilui. So Biu Inyan. So now we have to begin to understand this whole Inyan. Hine Isa B'Zoyah. It's written in the Zoyah that leish machashova tafisa boch klal. That machshova cannot grasp literally in you at all. Leish machshova. Leish means not. It's not possible. Yeah, machshova is machshova, and that we're going to see that can mean machshova in the highest madrigas. Afila. The inyan from Chochmah, Datzilas, Afila, the highest spheres, Lamaila, in Elikus Kufa, because we're all upon him in Gil Elikus, Lamaila, they're not able to have any grasp in Atzmusa, Boch, in you, Mamish, Klal, at all. But the Alter brings us in Tanya, and Perek Daled, and Perek Hey, he deals with over there, Bariches. Aval, says the Zoya, Nitves ihu b'riyusa libo. Over with literally the rotzen of the heart. Riyusa, the word riyusa in Aramic means literally rotzen. Over with the rotzen of the heart, nitfas ihu is graspable. Ihu meaning he, meaning the Eibishter. Nitfas is graspable. B'riyusa the libo. So now the emes is that that's not one statement. There's no such one statement in the Zohar. It would appear that that's two different statements that they sort of link together. They're sort of paired together in most Drushei Chassidus. Because Leis Machshava Tvisa Bei Klal, and you all know what that's because you say it every Friday. But maybe because it's only once a week, maybe from one Friday to the other you forget slightly that you said it. You know, when you say it again on Friday, then you get a whole new chayas in it. Because it's like if you hadn't said it before. But anyway, whatever, it's written in the Pasuk Eliyahu, right at the beginning of the Tikkunei Zohar. That's a Tikkunei Zohar. Right at the beginning of the Tikkunei Zohar, it's written, Leish Machshava, Tvisa Beikla.
What's the difference between
Huh?
What's the difference between Tikkun and Zohar?
What's the difference? The Tikkunei Zohar is like a, what you might call a sister work of the Zohar. It's not Mamish the Zohar, but it's another series of what's called tikkunim. Well, tikkunim are like statements. The word tikkun means almost like an ornament, or how do you call it, like an additional, how do you call it, decoration of the Zohar HaKodesh, Tikkunei Zohar. And actually, the Tikkunei Zohar it's traced to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and Rabbi Elazar and the Chachmei HaZohar. But if you look carefully, it's meant to be said, or it's Mishyachis Be'ika to the 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul until Yom Kippurim. There's a speciality that says that all those statements of the Zohar Kodesh have a special relationship to those times. So therefore, people, big Yidden, and once the Rebbe spoke about it, the Rebbe actually encouraged Chassidim that they should do it. There was one year the Rebbe spoke about it. What did he not speak about? What did he not encourage that we should do? That Elul, that whole 40 days from Rosh Chodesh, the Rebbe said, well, the Chassidim should say the Tikkunei Zohar. It's divided into these 40 sections, even though there's more than 40 tikkunim, but they're like divided into these 40 sections. And therefore, it's a special, like ornament, like a special decoration to the main Zohar HaKodesh, that you say it and give it over at certain times of the year, and there's certain relationships to the Aveda of Elul B'Tishrei, to the Yom Kippurim, but it's a minute. By all, how do you call it, Mishpalale, Nusach Arizal, to say it on Erev Shabbos, at least this part, the Pasuk Eliyahu, which is more or less the beginning of the Tikkunei Zohar. And some Sfadim say it every day. They say it every day before Shachris. Yeah. We say it every Friday before Knesset HaShabbos. Anyway, it's written over there, the Lashon, Leish Machshava Tvisa Bei Klal. Well, here it's written Leish Machshava Tvisa Bo Klal. Yeah, and then the expression Nitfus Ihu Barusa Deliva, that occurs in another part of the Zohar, not the Tikkunei Zohar, but the Zohar is the Pirush of Rashbi or Kol Chaverov on the Chumash. Even though there's a big Hakdama to the Zohar Kodesh, there's also about 20 blot of Hakdama, and then it gets going on the actual Chumash pages, but it's well known that what we have, B'Yodeinu, from the Zohar Kodesh is only small pieces. They say that the original Zohar Kodesh, the manuscript, the original Zohar Kodesh, was something like, I don't know, it was a long train of I don't know how many donkeys, packed on both sides of their bodies with huge bags of manuscripts. That was the Pirush of Rashbi of Chaverov on the Chumash. That was the Zohar HaKodesh. But unfortunately, a lot of it got lost, and what we have is only certain portions of it. Yeah, and so therefore we have to say that will be Choizer or Miskale. Bisman Iskalas Melech Mashiach taken from Yad. Just like many other things, it will be Miskale, and we must say that what didn't remain in our hands, only that much, because that's like the Gemara says the same thing as regards to Gemara. The actual discussions of the Gemara were how many hundreds of times more than what we actually have in our Shas. Yeah, but the Gemara says that Mashin Bo Yodeinu Nitzvah Choladoros. There was those things we need to know for all the generations through the Golas to come until Bias Moshe Tzidkenu. That's what we needed to know. That was Mukhrach. All the rest of it would have been like a tremendous fulfilling and high experience, icing on the cake, as you might say, extra Gilei Elokus. What was Mamish Mukhrach L'Deiros? That was the Sugyas, the shots that we have B'Yodeinu. It's stated in the Gemara. The same thing when I get to the Zohar. So that which has remained in our hands are these very small fractional amounts of the actual Pirush HaZohar. That's what we needed. That's what was necessary for us to bring Melech HaMashiach and to be Megala all the Inyonim Le'eis Ato in Pnimis HaTorah prior to the Skalas Atzuma, which will be taken from Yad, the Bias Mashiach Tzidkenu B'Poel Mamish. That's the difference between the Tikkun Zohar and then there's another thing, which is called another work, which is called the Zohar HaChodosh. The Zohar HaChodosh is new, further manuscripts that they found at a slightly later date, which all the indications show that they were originally part of the Zohar HaKodesh, and originally said by Rashbi v'Talmidov, and so on. But since they weren't included in the originals, therefore they're printed as a separate work, but they have certain comparisons. There's a lot of Chidushim and other things over there. That's called the Zohar HaChodosh. Al Kaponim, Leist Machshava Tvisa Baklal, that's in the Tikkun Zohar, and the expression Avol Nitvas Ihu B'Riyusa Deliba is in the Zohar. However, for our purposes, they balance one the other. That you can't understand him in Machshava, but you can grasp him. You can't grasp him with Machshava, but you can grasp him with Rusa Deliba. They were the Rotzen of the heart, which means the word Rotzen indicates an Indian Pnimi, an Indian Atzmi, which indicates that there's a type of Ahavo, as the one on that Av is based on the word Rotzen, the word Ahavo, and Ovo, like saying Ahavo means love, and Ovo means will, or to want, and that's where the word Taiva comes from, because you just change the vase into two vavs, the Swana, and the whole Biyuv is there. There's a certain Indian in the heart, which is called literally the longing, or what you might call the tuikif, harotzen of the lake. That grasps Kavayochel Adai Bishta in a way that Machshava can't. And so when we say that Machshava can't grasp in Klal, then we mean L'chera Atzmasei Tzei. The Eibush how he is Be'etzim. Which means that this Rusa Deliba can somehow or another, grasp him. So I saw the Shaila, would you do it? What's the singing of Rusa Deliba? Also, if we think about it carefully, we have to come to the conclusion that the word Nitfas is different in the two expressions. Well, that's what I say that Seichel can't, or Machshava, meaning high Madrigas, in Seichel can't be Tofes, then we're talking about the power of Seichel to be Tofes. Well, obviously, its ability to grasp has got its own characteristics, which are called the grasping of the Seichel. Or when we say that our Nitvasi can be Ryusa Deliba, then we must mean another form of grasping. If we just said he can't be grasped, and I say, well, yes, he can, then he must mean two different types of Pirushim in the word grasp. What does it mean? So we have to understand what are these inyonim. So therefore he said a Pirush leis Machshava Tvisa bei Klal. Skoi abchidus pnimiyas ve'atzmis eirein save. He said it's referring to the Eibush to how he's absolutely belief saved the pnimiyas ve'atzmiyas, which is completely beyond, as we saw before, oilamas altogether. Da'enu shayach shom tvisa v'hasoga klal. The tvisa shali de'asoga who rak b'pchinas eirein seif hashayach lo oilamas. So here we see that the Rebbe has already been mafarish. What is the word tfisa in that first phrase? Leis machshava tfisa beiklal. It means a tfisa which is through the act of the mind called hasoga. And the very word hasoga means that you catch up with something. you chase it and grasp it. Lahasig means to run after and be looking to catch to something, and then you've got it, and you literally arrest it inside your own hole. I said, that's referring to the Tfisa Shalidei Hasoga. So he's telling me basically a rather simple Indian. He's telling me an Indian that no matter how high you will go in Hasoga, so that would imply that there are different levels in Hasoga. Well, that's what we're going to see in a minute, that there are different forms of Hasoga. But no matter how high you will go within the Hasoga of rationality and of reasoning, you won't be able to grasp him, meaning how he is beyond Olam. Does that mean we don't have any Hasoga in Hashem? So he says, no. He said, there is a Inyan from Hasoga where we can grasp things about divinity. We can appreciate certain inyanim in divinity, but where is that? He said, that's only in the Ein Seif HaShayach Lo. In other words, how the Eibster mitzamtzim himself, and he comes down into through a ha'ora bilvad, through a luminescence only of himself, which undergoes all sorts of tzimtzumim and yeridas into Olam for Lashon Helem, and then it's possible for a human mind to have a certain appreciation which can be called grasping. Oh, but that's not in boy, that's already in a ha'ora bilvad, which is able to enter into the Olamas in the form of a Yislapshas, because it's come down b'ribui tzimtzumim. So he said to Shalidei Hasoga, who rak b'bchinas Ein Seif HaShayach Lo Ilamas, v'hainu ba'ha'ora elokis ha'mishlabeshes bo Ilamas le'hachi yoitzon, to give them life. What that is what it means, that the Ein Seif has been mitzamtzim l'fi eret, the kelim of the Olamas and the Nivroim, in order to give them life. In other words, if to give them life means they have to some way or another reckon with their Matziyah, because you can't give life to something if you just give it something which it's not able to take. Well, that means that the Ein Seif has come lefi erech the Nivra. If he's come lefi erech HaNivra, that's not emasa Ein Seif, that's already a tremendous horrible value which has come down but derech Yerida. Well, there we can have a sort. So he says, but that means B'klal, the whole level of divine revelation outside to Ilamas. Our opinions, Atzmis Ein Seif, are the Inyan from the Eibishter, how he's beyond the Ilamas and moved down in a form of Atzmiyas. Einu Shayat Tfisa Al Yidei Hasoga. It's not Shayat, the Inyan from Tfisa through this Inyan from Hasoga. You can't grasp him through Hasoga. And so we're going to see that there's two levels in Hasoga Gufa, two forms of Hasoga. And when we say Leis Machshava Tvisa Bei Klal, then we mean even a higher, more elevated form of Hasoga also doesn't in any way grasp him. In other words, it can just tell us that there is such a Inyan, but it can't grasp him. So therefore we'll go on now to the famous concept of Hasoga Sachiyuv, Hasoga Hashlila. That's what we call positive Hasoga, and then there's what's called withdrawn Hasoga, or Hasoga B'derech negation, which is a higher form of Hasoga, but it's not a direct Hasoga. That we'll see gets close to being aware of, and can in some way show and indicate that there must be a level of Atzmos Ein Seif, and can in some ways even talk about how distant it is from us with a certain limited way, but it's not able actually to grasp the actual level. It can only hint to us, in some way indicate to us that there is such a level. It's not able to grasp it, the image, because the Inyan from grasping means Hasoga and embrace of the Inyan Mamish Papuya. So we'll see more about that in coming in and progressing and hopefully developing episodes. Mitzvah Hashem. It's Alidei that they'll be progressing and developing attention to the Inyanim. And Alidei, what we'll soon be able to say, Hina Elokeinu Zeh. We'll be able to point even to us. can say, here he is, take him miyad in the Gula Mitis Vasleim miyad now, the Puyo Mamish. Good, so have a good evening, my gentlemen. And we want to place a new tvisa and a new asoga that now things have gone back a lot of comments to normal. I mean, there's never any normal in this world. If you go according to Amachadish Betuwe B'chol Yim told me Master Berezo is a new Iskalos in the Avish every second. That means that there's new quotas every second. So we're hoping that there'll be a new stress now on Seder. Until such time that there'll be a little bit of Bilti Seder again, but we're hoping that there'll be a new stress on Seder, which means particularly getting up in the morning, Space Hashem, everybody coming, Bezrizus, Gedolah V'Yisera, to learn Pnim Satera in Lev Yashke Avraham, Baveke, etc., etc. And then Avedis Atfila with a lot of brand, a lot of Pnimias. That's one of the great things that the Rebbe Rashab saw in Tom Chachmim, Dina Avedis Atfila. Then learning Danigla, and then. Yeah, the whole day, it's impossible to go into all the details. We hope there will be a lot of chayes in the Indian of Satan.